Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Q&A with the enormous team behind Strong is Better Than Angry. Tonight on the call with us, we have Hope Dickson Leach. If you could give us a little wave when I say your name, it's going to take me a while to go through the intros. Hope Dickson Leach, who is the writer and director. Wendy Griffin, who is the producer. Nicole Brandon, Loretta Dunn, Naomi Stirat, sorry Naomi, stumbling over that, Ria Finney, Lubna Kerr, who are all cast members, only some of the cast members. The cast is very, very large in this documentary, so we've just got some of them. And then finally we have Janet Hogg, who is a CBT therapist who might be chiming in with us as part of our conversation on anger. And then at the bottom of my screen, but frankly could be anywhere on your screen, we have Natasha, who is a BSL interpreter. If you are watching Natasha, you can actually pin her to your screen and make her bigger, and then we'll all be smaller boxes somewhere else. So do take us up on that if you'd like to. For myself, I'm going to keep everyone in gallery so that we have that as the recording. So that's pretty much all of the housekeeping. Oh no, it isn't. If you want to ask us a question at any time, jump in. There's a Q&A box at the bottom, so you can just type away and I will ask it to the group. So Strong is Better Than Angry. What can we say about this film? It's fascinating. It is a hybrid documentary / fiction film about a group of women who come together to kickbox, to express their anger and to have a sense of community as they're getting fit. And they talk to Hope about what makes them angry. We're going to assume that everyone has seen the film so that we don't have any spoilers or anything like that. We can just go ahead and talk about it freely. But if you haven't seen it, I really do recommend going and watching it. So we'll start with Hope and Wendy just to talk about the kind of background of the film before we go to the wider group. So Hope, this is, your project. It's, I think, the first thing that was kind of came to the Uncertain Kingdom that we kind of knew we were going to make. It was a really exciting moment when you pitched it to us. Can you tell us a bit about the background to the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just really angry. I'd been really angry for a while, and I'd been going to body combat classes and getting fit. And a lot of things weren't working in my life, and that was working, and it was really good, and it was really satisfying, and I felt myself getting stronger, and all these things that in my life I didn't have any control over. This was something where I could kind of take control and do something about it. So it was really while I was in this class that this kind of vision of what the Abby, the main character, goes through and what she does was sort of in my head. I started imagining people that I was punching, and I just thought it would be really funny. And I also just loved all the women. I loved all the different shapes of their bodies and the different sort of ways in which they were strong, and they were performing differently. There was no one right way to do this, and I just thought it looked really beautiful. So I just thought it would be a really beautiful film.
And it is.
And then I went to Wendy.
Yeah, so Wendy, when you heard it, what appealed to you? Why did you jump on to do the legwork?
Oh, Wendy,
you're on mute.
Well, I had when my kids were younger, I had done body combat quite a lot, but I hadn't done it for a while actually. But I remembered really loving it, and I since started again as we were prepping for the film and became obsessed again. But I really liked the idea of it being a sort of diverse mix of women and how I don't know, just it is where you can go to another place when you go into those classes, and it doesn't really matter who you are. You can just join in. It's very community minded, I suppose. So so it's a really nice idea, and I love sort of stuff about women. So.
Yeah, it's so simple as that, isn't it? It's already amazing.
The first class I went to, I was absolutely terrified because I was so unfit, and I walked in and there were 4 women and they were all in their 70s, and I thought, oh, okay, if they can do it, I can do it, which is not to be rude about the fitness levels of people in their 70s, but I just thought, oh God, this is for everybody, this is fine, this isn't just the terrifying 20-year-olds, so.
Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about how the casting came together, because this is a completely constructed exercise class. This isn't you visiting an existing exercise class and filming it. You've made it. So how did that happen? How did you find these incredible women? And how did you decide, actually, we're going to construct it rather than going and finding an existing one?
I think, it's a really personal thing to ask someone to come and do, to get physical, to talk, about these emotions. And I think we knew that we weren't going to be able to recruit a whole class. And we also just wanted to make sure we had a really good mix of women. So we how did we do it, Wendy? I can't even remember now.
Yeah, well,
we put out a casting
notice. Yeah,
we
put out a casting sort of brief. And Mel, who worked with us, I'm not sure she's in the audience, but she was amazing. She put helped us do that in various places we put out stuff on social media and at gyms, and just where we knew people that might be that were interested in exercise classes, but also to kind of diverse women's groups and stuff, and did a call out. And then we just invited people to come and meet. So that we could sort of have a chat to them about what we were doing, and see if they were up for it and if they fitted with the project. And basically we just met all these amazing women.
I mean, we left that session and we were like, we just want to make, an enormous feature documentary just about all these women. And suddenly the whole shift of the movie had changed. So I'd written a script, and there was a character in it, and Mariah, I'd written it for her and given her the script. And so it was kind of like, I knew how to make a drama, and then suddenly I met all these women. I thought, gosh, this isn't really about me anymore. This is so much bigger, and how are we going to sort of encompass everybody? So right at that point, we knew that there was going to be a kind of balance issue, and we were going to have to work on that kind of as we made the film.
In fact, at one point we were thinking that we would make almost like two films, didn't we? We thought we would have the drama and we would have a documentary, but in the end it just made more sense for it to all be, intertwined, really.
Well, it's a perfect time to open it out to the cast. When you saw that casting notice, what made you answer it? Why did you want to be involved? All being very polite. Jump in.
I saw it on Facebook and noticed that it said it mentioned body combat, and that's what I do sort of 3 or 4 times a week with my friends. And I think that's quite unusual to see pop up on a casting notice. So I was like, oh, I'll take a look. And then when I got more information from Mel, I just figured at the very least it was a free class, because these classes can be quite expensive. And it was actually that first meeting we had, it was amazing. It was a full, I don't know if it was 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and we just did a class together, and it was great.
I was forgetting that we did the class. Yeah.
We made you all do an exercise class.
Yeah.
Quite full on.
Oh my God, I thought I was going to die at the end of it. I'd never done anything so intense before, because I'm a belly dancer, but I've never really done boxing or body combat or anything. But it was really good fun, and I felt really good after it. So yeah, I've done a lot of it since, actually. So thank you.
It was just unusual to have a part as an actress where you were exercising. I felt as if I was getting 2 for the price of 1. So it was making real use of my time.
Yeah.
And it was on social media, Wendy. That's where I saw it. That's where it was advertised. So
and what was it like? Oh, sorry, you were going to say, Nicole.
Well, I saw it on social media too, and like Naomi, I saw that the body combat part was involved, and I thought that was really interesting, because coincidentally I had just started at a gym, and that was one of the classes that I could go to that I had been doing. So it seemed to just sync right up. Yeah. And that looked really awesome. And it was, once I found out more, I really wanted to go try out. So it was really good.
It's fascinating to me that the overwhelming, at least from this part of the cast that we're talking to, angle is like, let's go do a free class. Like that, and then of course what you're signing up for is actually, oh no, by the way, I have to sit down and just bare my soul to this complete stranger, which you all do so beautifully and generously. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Give us an insight into how a person like Hope and a person like Wendy establishes enough trust with you that you are ready to talk to her like that?
I suppose they just made you feel comfortable, and gave us enough explanation and background about what the film was going to be about. And by doing the exercise, we actually tapped into our own emotions. And then when it got to the bit about what is it you feel angry about, because the physical exercise was bringing out that action, then when it came to talking about it, the emotions were at the surface.
Yeah.
So the exercise fed into what you were going to say.
Yeah.
I think there were a couple of things. I think the first conversation I had with Hope and Wendy, I don't know, I think they asked what makes you happy, and we spoke about desserts. And I think when you have a lovely exchange about one of the things you're passionate about, like desserts, it's kind of a key into the deeper stuff. And then when it came to filming, and we didn't rehearse those conversations or practice them, but while Hope and Wendy were inside doing the one-on-one interview stuff, the rest of us were outside eating and chatting. Again, a free lunch, like what's not to love?
I mean, really, yeah.
So we were already having conversations as a cast. We were already talking about the kind of themes that came up in the end. So it was so interesting when I came to watch the film, because we hadn't heard anybody else's interview, but there were obviously things that had been sort of sparked in conversations in the group outside that then leaked into those interviews, which was really lovely to see.
I mean, we spoke sort of briefly before we all came on about the kind of community that came together, as a, in this kind of forced way, and it is organised, and yet it became very true, and you were all there having this experience together. What did that experience, both the experience of suddenly exercising on camera, which is quite a vulnerable thing to do, opening up to Hope is a vulnerable thing to do, coming together with a bunch of completely random women is a vulnerable thing to do. What did that bring to your life, having had that experience?
Well, actually, afterwards, Mandy, one of the cast members, got all our contact details, and we're actually on a WhatsApp group, so we're actually all still in touch.
So it's
just amazing. A year later, we're
amazing.
Still chatting. And the first time we all met, I think we were all just so supportive of each other, because although we knew what it was about, some of the girls maybe hadn't been in a film before, and some of us had, so we were helping each other and explaining what the process might be and why we'd need to take that shot again, or do it from this angle or from that angle, or it was a very supportive environment. I would say we just got on. It's just one of those things. I mean, I think Hope and Wendy picked a really good team of women. We just all clicked.
Yeah. Loretta, you look like you were going to jump in with something.
I was going to say I felt very supported when I initially met Hope and Wendy, and I instantly was attracted to their energy, and I believed that any project that they were involved with was going to be compassionate and supportive and empowering for women. And I picked up the advert with St Margaret's House, which is an art project at Meadowbank. And I myself had started Body Combat 25 years ago or thereabouts, when my children were very young, and I was looking for an escape from young children, as anyone who has them will know. And slowly I started to find me again, because I think particularly if you're involved with any kind of caring, you can lose yourself. And I think that for an hour, I could be me. And in that hour, the frustrations that I may have felt were able to be punched and kicked away, until I eventually grew into, because that helped me to grow and develop, and I eventually grew into who I am now, which is a much more Zen-like type person, and not too many things make me angry. Things can make me upset and disappointed, but as far as anger, I'm not so quick to anger, I don't think. And I think a lot of it is to realise how to manage that particular emotion, And so when I saw the advert, I jumped on it with both hands, because I just thought this what a fantastic opportunity to be able to not only do body combat, but also realise that other people were experiencing the same thing. And I think that's why we all gelled. We're women in society nowadays, I think, need to be supported in self-empowerment and anything else, and to have a woman director and writer and woman producer, that's definitely something that I was very involved with, and it was a wonderful experience, and I would do it all again in a minute.
I'm so pleased to hear that.
That's so nice. Loretta, but by the way, I just want to say, Loretta, when we asked her who she would punch, she said she wouldn't punch anyone. And so I always feel a little bit bad that that wasn't included in the film, because I didn't want anyone to think that you would punch anyone. But, you know, I'm going to say that now. Loretta doesn't want to punch anyone.
Janet, I'd love to bring you in here to talk a little bit about what Loretta started on there, about the role of activities like this and the communities that gather around them in managing our emotions, because this is your area.
Yeah, I don't quite know what to say about the communities aspect of it, because I kind of do one-to-one therapy with men and women. But what really struck me about the film was, what makes total sense to me is body combat is a very physical, active behaviour. And quite often we're quite often I'm teaching my clients to kind of breathe and relax, you know, sort of diaphragmatic breathing, etc. But what I found, right, is that with my angry women, and I'm talking about women with a history of trauma, what works a lot better for them is to get physical, is to release tension. And there's a couple of women in your film that I really recognised from my work that I wonder if they had a trauma background. And one of them in particular, I saw her visibly relax at the end when she was asked some questions, and it was beautiful to see. The other thing, I mean, and just what I also saw was, well, I'm guessing there was something about the community of being in a group as well, and a group of women, and it not being therapy. It's just, you come together, you kind of get physical, you forget about things, and there's a physiological reaction that will go on in the body, which will be, you know, better than an hour's worth of me talking to somebody quite often. But yeah, that's my thoughts, sort of, that they were the overarching thoughts I had around the film, really.
Yeah, makes sense.
And something about what I've also noticed is that quite often, I mean, this isn't so much that, I don't know if you got this out of any of the people who participated in the film, but anger is usually an emotion that's quick. It's the top emotion, but there's other stuff going on underneath. It's usually around anxiety or sadness, or fear, or
yeah. Well, this is something I wanted to kind of bring back to the cast. I said to Hope on the phone earlier today that it struck me during our conversation that I don't remember, certainly as an adult, anybody ever asking me such a plain and simple question as, what are you angry about? And I wondered, but even as I'm saying it to myself now, it actually feels like a really transformative question just to ask myself. And I wondered what it was like to have somebody just ask you that question and to get to answer it.
I think it's quite a disarming question because it is so direct, and when you're being filmed, obviously you want to show your best side forward, so you might have to think twice about that particular question, I guess. But I think for me, anger involves a bit of work. It involves a bit of recognition as to what the emotion underneath it is. And identifying that emotion will then take you elsewhere. And that's a process that takes a long time. It's not something that's an instant thing. And there's a lot of internal work and soul searching perhaps as part of it all. So for me, this has been part of my journey to this point in time now, really. And I feel very fortunate to have found it, because while I do enjoy yoga now, when I started doing body combat all those years ago, that would not have suited my personality at all. I couldn't have imagined anything more boring. And that's because I didn't know what it was all about, but releasing by being very physical felt the right thing to do. And it's the actually meeting up with other women was an incidental but a fantastic bonus, because not only do I have friends after 20 odd years of doing body combat from these classes, but I've discovered that during the making of the film, that we all came together with a singular mind, that exercise and stress management went hand in hand.
Mm. Mm.
I think that. Oh, you go for it.
Oh, sorry, Nelly. I was just gonna say, I know that when Hope and Wendy would ask the kind of question like what makes you angry of me, I never prepped anything in advance. I just went off. And like, I'm sorry guys for all the long times. But it was not necessarily, like, for me, I don't think it was particularly disarming, but it was helpful to be able to articulate it. I know that in the movie, more than a few of us wind up saying something like, oh, I should have had a list. Like, could have been organized this even more, which just made me smile, but also made me think about, how rarely this is a question that gets asked, So I thought that was very telling that was something that kept repeating. And each of us had different approaches to how we thought about answering that question, because we knew it was coming, not like it was a surprise.
Yeah.
Naomi, in fact, I think answered in sort of stages in a really interesting way, I think, from a therapist's point of view, where she would talk about something like, someone stealing something from her hot dog, I think. We talk about when someone steals my chips or something, yeah. Which is funny, like, yeah. You remember the ice cream from the audition. But and then, so it was like people often danced around a bit. It was like the things that are sort of immediate and that happen to me every day and that I can think of. And then these kind of deep-seated kind of institutional questions kind of eventually people started, well, some of that, Nicole got to those more quickly, but there were kind of some people felt, but it was interesting how you needed time, because it's experiencing anger on lots of different levels and different places in your life. This question wasn't for me, so sorry for jumping in there.
Not at all.
I was just going to say something similar. It felt like a really simple question, and as I started to answer, it was like layer after layer. You say one thing and then you think of another thing, and it kind of builds and snowballs. So at the start it maybe felt like a bit more shallow, but then got really intense.
Just on a ramp up.
Yeah.
We've had a question come in from Jules, which I think is really spot on. She says, the world has changed enormously since you all made this powerful film. Who would you, filmmakers and cast, she says, want to punch now?
Anybody? Loretta presumably still doesn't want to punch anyone. Or maybe that's changed.
It's been a testing few months, I don't know.
I think when I see what's going on in the political world, which was still the same when the film was made, but things across the water I've certainly ramped up, and I think I could possibly make an exception for the current President of the United States. But I think there's probably a mile-long queue, if not longer, to do that particular one.
I think I'd like to punch the policeman that had his knee on George Floyd and just stop that from happening, because that was just absolutely horrendous. The live execution that we all saw, that was just, the anger that I felt when I saw that was just horrendous. And I think when you go back to talking about anger, it's about where do you feel that anger? Which part of your body? What do you do when you feel the anger? Are you clenching your hands? Are your shoulders tight? Is it in your heart? Where is it? So yeah, I think that's how I really would like to punch.
I mean, I think we talked about this briefly before we came on, but I think the film regardless of who we might be punching or what we might be punching within the film, just the act of making the film now would be exceptionally difficult. Because I said to Hope and Wendy earlier today, like, watching the film now, it looks almost obscene. You know, you've got all of these people with bare flesh sweating on each other, like there's probably saliva flying, like it's all over the place. Heavy breathing. There's no social distancing of any kind. Using the same equipment. I mean, it looks so healthy in so many specific ways, but at the same time, right now, like a kind of medical bomb is going off. And I wondered how you guys you're obviously all not doing those classes, how you have replaced that in your life during this period.
I'm missing the structure of classes massively. I think for me it's a big part of my week, and it might be the same for some of the other cast members, but I'm freelance, so I don't always have structure, so those classes are the things that kind of stay constant for me. So it's hard not having that, but it's my social time and it's my physical exertion time, it's the getting the energy out time. So the way that I've combated that is
it was hanging there the whole time. Someone had to take it down.
I have been doing Zoom classes, so getting my iPad, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, I don't know if this is allowed, getting my iPad out, getting a class on my iPad, and then Zooming all my pals, and we just watch the same class. And then it's great. So it kind of, you've still got the accountability of exercising with other people, so you don't just give up. You've got the time, like, I'm going to be there at 2:00 and this is going to be my exercise dedicated time. So that's really helped me with structure and stuff. But watching the film, I'm just like mourning that and like so desperate for craving that time with other people in a room.
Well, I've actually taken up walking. I know that sounds bizarre, but I live in a village, and I had never walked around the village, and now I know all the routes, and I know just about everybody in their gardens, and I can tell you who works in the garden, who works in the car. I've also almost become like the judge of the best garden in the village. Hoping to get some tips, desperate to see if somebody will come and do my garden.
That's so great.
You get a sponsor, and you could, have a t-shirt, do some advertising.
You're a one-woman county show, just going around awarding prizes. It's so great. That's so great.
I was going to say, I don't have the space to exercise or do any indoorsy things. It just doesn't work. But I've been doing the Couch to 5K running app, which is great. If you're thinking about it, folks should do it. I started running for like 30 seconds on week 1, and now I'm at the end of it, and you run for 30 minutes. So
great.
And I'm not coordinated or very good at this stuff. So like, you can just keep trying and it's okay. But yeah, it's even with digital Michael Johnson telling me to keep running, it's still nothing compared to having people around. I miss that very much.
Yeah, I think
what you do, Billy.
Yeah, sorry, no, I was going to say, I'm quite lucky because my belly dancing teacher has been keeping her classes going virtually. So, and she's put on extra classes as well. So it's not quite the same as being in, a room with a lot of women, but it's really important, I think, from the kind of community aspect. And also we've been doing things like haflas, which are like belly dancing parties. And that's just really good fun. And I think it's what everyone needs at the moment, just coming together and like socially dancing. That's been great. So I've been quite lucky, like from that point of view, I'd say.
That's your next film, Hope.
Yes. You can teach us all. Wendy, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say I've got online body combat classes, but it hadn't occurred to me the Zoom thing. That's because I do find it quite hard to make myself go and do it on my own, because I just put it off because it's at any time. But that's a good idea, making a time and a group.
Yeah, I'll do it with you.
Yeah, we should do that one day. Because think it's that having somebody shouting at me to do something is what I need. Otherwise, I don't do it myself. So,
yeah, we all need a bit of that.
I need Michelle.
On that mention of time, we are at time, so I will wrap it up here just to say thank you so much to all of you for coming on. This has been a really, really, really lovely conversation, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. I'm going to be back here tomorrow night talking to the team behind Grit Oyster, another group of fascinating women with lots to say. So if that's your cup of tea, and it ought to be, see you here tomorrow night. And this conversation will be on YouTube tomorrow, so do please feel free to share it with everyone you know. Thank you very much, and good night to you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.